Hey Prod Team, it's Francis and I'm back with a fresh set of Shotgrid tutorials. This is part of my current series, How to Shotgrid, or H2SG for short. To watch more of my Shotgrid videos, I'll be compiling them on my Series 2 playlist, so make sure to check it out. Today I'll be going over the different ways you can create a playlist in Shotgrid.
I'll start off with the most basic way of creating a playlist and then share 5 other ways you can do the same thing.
I'll also be sharing some bonus tips along the way, like troubleshooting tips and other shortcuts, so make sure to watch the full video. As always, there's a written version of this tutorial, and you can find a link to it in the description below. Alright, let's make some playlists.
So you want to be proud. 6 ways of creating a playlist in Shotgrid. But first, let's talk about why we create playlists. Creating a playlist is a quick way to keep versions organized, whether they're assets or shots, and they're especially useful in tracking them in reviews, dailies, or even client deliveries. Production will often get tasked to create different playlists, and depending on your department, some production will be tasked on this more than others. If you're new, this is one of the first things you'll be tasked with. Option 1 is to create a playlist through the playlist page. Here's a step-by-step on how to create a playlist in Shotgrid. Step 1 is to click on the playlist page, which can be found at the top menu bar. If that's not visible, you can also click on Other and it should be on the drop-down menu. On the playlist page, step 2 is to click the Add Playlist button. A pop-up box should appear for you to fill out playlist information, so step 3 is to fill out that pop-up box. Make sure that you're following your show's naming convention. This is an example of what I like to use when I'm naming playlists, and I also highly recommend updating the description so that there's no confusion when other people see the playlist on the list. If you don't see date and time on the form by default, you can click on the gear and click on Configure Layout and then add in what's missing. For example, I also like to add tags. Or if you don't have admin permissions, you can click on More Fields and add it that way. And finally, step 4, click Create Playlist to create the playlist. Once created, it should appear on screen left. Step 5 is adding the versions. So if I go back to my versions page, I will now add the items that I want to review. For example, I want to review these 3 assets and these 2 clips and then one last asset there. You can also shift select multiple versions like this. And then I'm going to right click on any of the versions and I'm going to select Add to Existing Playlist. And once I see the playlist that I just created show up from the list, I'm going to select it and I'm going to click on Link Selected. I know that I did that correctly when I see that on my playlist column here, I see the playlist that I just created appear. If you don't see this column, you can always bring it up by clicking on the add column icon there and then clicking on playlist. I like to keep that column visible by default so I know exactly where a certain version will appear in playlists or if something has been added to a playlist. The next step is optional but a highly recommended one, and that is to set the sort order of the versions in your playlist. So to do that, you're going to select your playlist. I'm currently on the detail view, and right now by default it looks like I'm going to be viewing this with the 2 clips first and then the chair asset, then the cube and 2 monkeys. However, if I want to set a specific order for when this is review, maybe I want to review the cube first, then the monkey, then the chair, then the 2 clips, you can do that by setting the sort order. At the moment, I'm looking at my columns here and I do not see it. So to add a column, you can right click, insert column, and look for sort order. It's going to create a new column and it's grayed out. And from here, you can enter the order of the items that you want the playlist to follow when presenting. So like I said, I want to make the cube number 1, and this way, once there is a sort order set, then I could simply just click on the sort order. It will rearrange the versions of that playlist so that now when it's reviewed, it will be reviewed in the order that I had just set it to. For a bonus tip, there are actually 3 ways to view playlists on the playlist page. The first is detailed view, and you can see that on the top left corner here. And the detailed view just lists all the playlists that were created on the left hand side, but it enables you to select one and then show the details of that selected playlist on the screen right. And you can click on different tabs like what's inside that playlist, and if there are notes, it should appear here too. The second view is the thumbnail view. I don't really see much use for this, but I personally prefer to see my playlist page in the list view. If at any point you want to remove a specific version from the current playlist you have selected, you simply have to select that item. For example, I don't want to show the monkey with no hat anymore, so I'm going to select that version, and then I'm going to hover at the top there and click Unlink Selected. And it's gone. Another way of removing a version from the playlist is by going to the playlist column and removing that playlist from its linked playlist. So just click an X, and now if I refresh this, the monkey with no hat is not on the playlist anymore.
For more tips like this, check out my other video on how to troubleshoot creating playlists in Shotgrid. Now that we've learned the most basic way to create a playlist, here are some other ways that you could try to optimize your workflow. I like some of these because they speed up some of the processes depending on where you're looking at in Shotgrid. Some of these are my personal go-to tricks, especially for playlists that generally have the same playlist information or process that is pretty repetitive.
Option 2 is creating a playlist from the versions page. Step 1 is to go to the versions page. Once there, we want to select the versions to add, so we're going to select one and hold Control and left click on the other versions to add. And next we're going to right click on any of the versions and select Add to New Playlist. Step 4, we're going to fill out the playlist information. And then finally click the Create Playlist button. If done correctly, you should see the name of the playlist you just created under the playlist column. Another bonus tip is you can actually double click on the playlist field once you select a version and type in the name of that existing playlist, and that's how you can add that selected version onto that existing playlist. And this will work in the asset or shots page. Just make sure to click on the versions tab. Alternatively, you can also right-click on a version and select Add to Existing Playlist to add it to an already existing playlist. Option 3 is creating a playlist through the playlist column. Step 1 is to type the playlist name directly onto the playlist field. Step 2 is you're going to click on the drop-down that says Create. Step 3, you're going to fill out the playlist info. And step 4, click the Create Playlist button. In step 5, now that the playlist has been created, select other versions to add, then right click and select Add to Existing Playlist. Then finally click Link Selected. If done correctly, you should see those versions in that playlist you created. Bonus tip, like always, you don't have to be in the versions page. You can click on the asset or shot and then do all of this in the versions tab. Option 4 is creating a playlist from a customized widget. Step 1 is to go to that custom page. Production dashboard is what we'll use for this example. We have two widgets in this page. So we're going to click on Add Playlist in the Playlist widget. Step 3 is to fill out the Create New Playlist pop-up with the playlist info. Step 4, click the Create Playlist button. If done correctly, you should see the new playlist appear in the Playlist widget. Moving on to the Pending Review widget, we're going to click the versions that we want to add. Again, you can control left click to select multiple versions. Then step 6, right click and add to existing playlist and link selected. If done correctly, you should see those versions appear in the Versions tab of that playlist. Option 5 is to create a playlist through the Media Center. I don't usually recommend this for production, but it is possible. So step 1, you're going to click on Media from the menu bar. And then you're going to click on your project if it's not selected already, and then click on the playlist at the top. Step 3 is to click the plus playlist button, selecting your project again. Step 4 is to rename your playlist following your show's naming convention. Step 5 is to drag and drop the versions that you need into the playlist you just created. And this is usually why some people prefer to create playlists through the Media Center. If done correctly, you should see those versions appear when you click on the playlist. Step 6 is to go to the Playlist Info tab of that playlist and fill in the missing playlist info. Speaking of the Playlist Info tab, bonus tip, you can also add versions by just typing it directly under the Versions field. If done correctly, you should see that version appear when you click on the Versions tab. Lastly, to set the sort order, click on the List view, then click on the Sort Order column, and hold left click and drag and drop the versions as needed. If done correctly, you should see those versions rearranged to the sort order when you play the playlist. And finally, my personal go-to is to duplicate an existing playlist. For this option, you want to be in the list view in the playlist page, and then select the playlist that you want to copy or duplicate. You're gonna right click and select Duplicate Selected, and then rename that playlist, as well as other details that matter for your show. And then step 4 is a bit of a cleanup. Duplicate copies the same versions from the original playlist, so you want to clean that up and unlink it, and then add the versions that you do want. Bonus tip, another way to add versions is by clicking the Link Selected button, and then selecting the versions that you want from the pop-up, and then clicking Link Selected. Then you should see those versions appear on the Versions tab. Don't forget to set your sort order.
So there you have it. I hope that this video is useful to you in organizing your versions and playlists in Shotgrid. Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who could use these tips. As you know, I'm on a mission in getting more support for prod, and anyway, I'm getting the word out there on these resources goes a long way. I hope you learned something new today that you could use to help someone else. Because at the end of the day, your greatest resource is each other. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye! Let me know what you thought of these workflows, and do you have a favorite process that works for you? Share them in the comments so you could help someone else too.